Welcome. I'm Jennifer Cook DeRosa, and we're going to talk about alternative college credit in your homeschool for college credit program. We get a lot of questions about alternative college credit, and really, it's important to know how it's different from regular college credit so that you know whether or not it makes sense to use it in your homeschooling for college credit program. So, what is alternative, right? Well, so alternative is any type of potential college credit that does not come from the traditional college classes. So if you're taking a class online from a business, that's alternative. If you're studying for an exam so you can test out of a class, that's alternative. If you're enrolled in a class where you're going to campus, that is not alternative. That's traditional. And you can even take traditional college courses online through a regular college or university. So we are talking about alternative college credit today and how to use it and how to not use it in your homeschool. So, first of all, I have to give you this big piece of advice. So, when you're looking into alternative college credit, you are most likely going to land on a website from the company that is selling the product. Alternative college credit is not offered from a college. It's a business. It's a for-profit entity. So, of course, they're going to tell you how it's wonderful. Of course, they're going to tell you that it transfers everywhere. Of course, they're going to tell you that you should use their product. But be aware that if the product is the one giving you the information, that's not advice. That's a sales pitch. Okay. That is not helping you plan for college. They are just trying to sell you a product. So you need to go to a third party that's unaffiliated with these products. Homeschooling for College Credit, of course, is an organization that will help you do that. We are a nonprofit organization. We are a 501c3 charity. We are completely neutral. We have zero affiliation with any of these companies. And so we don't benefit financially from telling you the pros and the cons of these different companies. So we can tell you how to use these products and what to look out for without worrying about whether or not you're going to subscribe or buy our products, because that's not our mission. So, why would someone choose an alternative college credit? First of all, let me just say that I used a lot of alternative college credit in my own degrees. I have 4 degrees. 2 of them were full of alternative college credit. Of my 4 homeschooled sons, 3 of them used alternative college credit towards their degrees. So there is definitely a lot of benefits to using alternative college credit. You can get a lot better price sometimes, depending on the product. Sometimes these businesses will offer promotions, coupons, sales, things like that. And so if you are available to take advantage of those, you can get a lot of college credit. A lot of these programs are self-paced. So an advantage there would be a student who works very quickly, or for a student who works very slowly, it allows you to do that without worrying about a typical traditional college calendar. So you might have the ability to cram for something over, let's say, winter break and get a whole entire college class done inside of a week or maybe 2 weeks. Whereas if you were taking it from a college, then you'd have to be locked into that schedule. Most of the alternative credit that you do is going to be online. It's going to be remote. There's not ever going to be a teacher. And the classes that have grades are not being graded by a teacher. They're being graded by a grader. So there's never going to be a teacher that's involved in the process. Now, that's a pro or a con, depending on your point of view, right? But alternative college credit is also not affiliated with a college. So this is completely third party. It's completely outside of the system. As such, there's no commitment. So you're not signing up. You're not filling out a college application. You're not filling out financial aid forms. You're not going through all of that paperwork. You're literally just buying a class. When you finish that class, you can decide if you want to do more classes or not. So there's no commitment. You can do this separately and apart from any type of college enrollment. You can amass lots of college credit either as a high school student or as an adult, and then decide later whether or not you want to send that to a college. So you have a lot of advantages of the alternative credit and why someone might want to choose those. The other thing that is a big deal, this is particularly true with high school students, is alternative college credit doesn't leave a paper trail. Now, what does a paper trail mean? Well, when you earn actual college credit from a college, and you move around to different colleges. Let's say you're a high school student and you're taking a dual enrollment English 101 class online, and you're taking a local computer course at your local community college as a high school student. So you've got enrollment happening in a couple colleges. Well, when you eventually go to college as a high school graduate after high school, you're going to have to send those transcripts from those first two colleges forward to your actual target college. All of those classes that you took through a college do create an academic record, and so you have to disclose that record. Very important. Colleges can revoke your admissions if you don't disclose, so it's super important. Well, alternative college credit, because it's not done through a college, doesn't leave a paper trail. So a lot of the time, an advantage to earning this alternative college credit is that there's really no paper trail. If your student doesn't like the class, if you fail the class, if you don't complete it, whatever the case may be, you don't have to send it in, you don't have to disclose. That also is an advantage for people who are trying to retain their freshman admission status and they want to take college classes after high school. If you graduate from high school and you take regular college classes, you can turn into a transfer student. And you may or may not want to be a transfer student, but if you're using alternative college credit, then you never become a transfer student as a result of earning that credit. So who uses alternative credit? Well, homeschooling for college credit students do. We have a lot of families that use a lot of alternative credit. Whether it's a class or whether it's credit by exam, it gets a lot of traction in our community because in most cases, a homeschool family has to choose curriculum anyway. And so alternative college credit can be done at any age. And it makes sense that being a lower risk and often a lower cost, that a family with a younger student might want to try alternative college credit before their student actually does a college course. So a family that's maybe unsure if their student is ready for English 101 might be more comfortable with their student doing an English composition class as an alternative college credit instead of English 101 at the college. So you'll see a lot of it, particularly with the younger grades, whether the student isn't ready, maybe they don't have access, maybe they haven't met the entrance requirements and so forth. So you'll see a lot of that. Also, alternative college credit targets the adult market primarily. So this is really where alternative college credit was born. It was for adults. CLEP, which has been around since the 70s really, was the alternative way to earn college credit. It was one of the very early ways of earning college credit. So the market is very focused on the adult learner or the person who is returning to college. And so you will see a lot of promotion towards adults as well as homeschool students. These are two markets that they have really decided to market heavily towards. And then, of course, personal interest. Sometimes someone just wants to take a college class. They're interested in a subject and they're curious about the content. So you'll see all kinds of different people choosing to use alternative college credit. Now, really, the ideal way to use this credit would be for an adult that needs a degree to check a box. This is how every bit of alternative credit began. This is really the kind of the overarching use of this type of credit. You have an adult who is in their career and they've reached a point in their career where they can't advance anymore without a degree. So this was intended to solve that problem. So the adult can use alternative college credit. They can work it in and around their busy lives. They can get their degree and they can use their degree as a way of checking the box. So in other words, they're not using the degree to give them the entrance into their occupation. They're already working in their career. This is just to allow them to remove a barrier. And so that is really the ideal way of using alternative credit. But because it's used now among homeschools and among high school students, there's a lot of other ways that you can use alternative credit that make sense. So one would be if the grades aren't needed. Now, in a homeschool, the parent awards grades. So it's okay for the product that you're using not to award a grade. It only comes in as pass-fail credit. But if you're taking a class with a college, that is going to carry a grade. So sometimes, especially if you have a student that maybe is nervous from getting a grade and you don't want them to have a grade, using a pass-fail is a great way to work around that anxiety. Now, thinking forward, when your student is sending these to their college that they're going to be going to, keep in mind that those grades are not going to be part of their new transcript. We'll talk about that more in just a minute. Another thing to keep in mind with the alternative credit is that the college that your student is targeting needs to accept the credit. They should be a partner. Now, these businesses, in order for colleges to accept this credit, these businesses have formed partnerships with the colleges. These business partnerships have all happened ahead of time. So you want to make sure that the program that you're looking at does have that partnership in place with at least one of the colleges that you can consider attending. It's unlikely that your local community college or local state university is going to be a partner school. These are not going to be the partners that these businesses have relationships with. So you'll have to be somewhat open-minded when it comes to choosing the college that your student goes to. You do want to look for companies that are reliable with a long history. I keep a list on Homeschooling for College Credit website, and it does get longer and longer every year because companies do pop up. They think that they have hit gold because they can sell courses to adults or homeschoolers, and then they go belly up and they go out of business. And unfortunately, so does the college credit. So when you have a situation where you're buying this credit and you're planning on using it later, you really want to make sure that you're choosing a reliable company. Check your list against the list that we have on our website, the College Credit Directory, to make sure that the company that you're looking at isn't on the do not recommend list, and you should be good to go. Also, another thing to think about is the use of the credit transferring out of the school. So if you're looking at a partner college, and let's say that the partner college you're looking at is ABC University, and you can send all your alternative credit to ABC University towards a degree, but you think maybe you'd rather go to XYZ college later, you're not going to be able to do that. Every time you transfer your credit to a new school, it's going to be reevaluated. So you always, always, always have to choose to put that credit towards a degree at a college that takes that credit. You're never going to be able to credit launder and take that credit elsewhere. It's always going to be reevaluated. And these types of credits work great for an undergraduate degree if you're planning on going to a non-competitive graduate school. And many of the graduate schools are non-competitive, so you shouldn't have any trouble getting into college for graduate school, unless you're choosing a more competitive program or a more competitive major. Something like medical school, that's not going to be, a way for you to use alternative credit to get into a program like that. Some of the more competitive engineering programs, even competitive nursing programs, those are going to be pretty limited in how you use alternative credit. It's not to say you can't use any of it, but it does require a lot more savvy. So let's talk about some of the pros and cons. Let's talk about the work of the class. What is different between an alternative class that you would take versus a college class? So what really is a pro is also a con. It just kind of depends on what you need at the time, right? So one of the pros is that it's low cost if you can work fast. A lot of these alternative credits are subscription programs where you pay per month. So if you are super speedy and you can complete a college class in 3 or 4 days, you might be able to get 10 classes done in a month. I know adults that have been able to work that fast. But the flip side of that is that if you are a high school student and you're intending on using this class over a whole semester, now you're talking about, 3 months, maybe 4 months. Now you're really going to be spending as much as, 4 or 5 times more just to take the class that way. So it depends on how they bill it as to whether or not you're going to be better off working quickly or working over the whole semester. But you can move very quickly through the subjects you already know. If your student already did a class and now you want to just go back and get credit by exam, something like that, they don't have to go and retake a whole class. They already know that information. One of the things to look out for, though, is almost every one of these subscription companies, parents, just be aware that the answers are already on cheat websites. You can Google any test question, any quiz question, and you're going to be able to find it immediately. And it will be word for word. And that is because of the integrity of these products is pretty low. So just kind of be aware of that. Another pro is that there's no teacher. And so, because there's no teacher, this particularly appeals to adult learners and also homeschoolers who kind of like to do their own thing, right? So, there's no bias there. So, you don't have the teacher's pet, you don't have a lot of the politics or the agendas that might be in a typical college class. But the flip side is that there is no teacher to help your student learn. So, there's no feedback on their writing, there's no homework to be evaluated, and there's no lecture and nothing like that. And so it is a very different kind of situation. The student really does have to be a self-directed learner. And you should know that this is the least rigorous type of college credit. Alternative college credit is not as rigorous as a college class. So don't think that just because your student is very young and they're completing this college credit that they are a genius. In fact, this is a much easier type of college credit to complete than a college class. So that could be a pro, or I guess it could be a con, depending on your situation, right? If you have a student that struggles, this type of college credit is a little bit easier to get. And so you can find a pathway for your student to get a degree that might not be there otherwise. Now, there's a few other little post-it notes here on your screen, and so it kind of just depends on your perspective. But remembering that the student isn't going to get a grade, they're only going to pass or fail. 70% or above is passing on almost every type of alternative credit. But this does restrict their ability to do critical thinking activities because they're really just watching videos or reading text, and then they're answering short quizzes. Very rarely will the student have to do any homework. There are exceptions to that. But for the most part, it's watch a video, read a lesson, take a quiz. And so the student is 100% teaching to the test. So they're trying to pass the quizzes so that they can get to the final exam and pass the class that way. So talking about now the credit, the actual credit, once your student is done with that credit, what about the pros and the cons here? Well, one of the pros is that the participating college list will accept loads of credit, meaning the schools that take this kind of credit take a lot of it. So you will find on these lists of partner colleges that your student can outsource 75%, let's say, of the degree using alternative credit. And so they only have to complete approximately 25% of the degree with the college themselves. So if you're thinking of a 4-year degree, that means you can come in with 3 years already done if you've planned well, and then just do 1 year of classes, either online or on campus. There are a couple colleges that allow you to even bring in more than that. But having those specific colleges in mind, it lends itself really well to this kind of program. So if you desire to use a lot of alternative credit, just be aware that you're going to be looking at a very small list of target colleges. There's probably only about 20 on there, but you only need one, right? So this kind of credit works really well for a liberal arts degree or a business degree because those are very general. Those allow a lot of flexibility. Alternative credit businesses and companies, they tend to provide credits and classes that are going to be popular. So you're going to be able to find English 101. Everybody's going to offer that, okay? Everybody's going to offer college algebra. Everybody's going to offer U.S. history. Everybody's going to offer intro to psych. Those are common courses and everybody wants to take them. So as a result, you're going to have a lot of opportunities to get degrees that have a lot of general education. Once you decide you want a specific major, then you're going to be more limited because not a lot of alternative credit companies actually provide alternatives for the upper level credits, which is the 300 and 400 level, the last 2 years of a bachelor's degree. So if your student wants a specific major, then you might have a tough time. And I will also just say that if your student is going into an occupation that requires a license and they have to get their degree from a certain school, you are almost never going to be able to use a lot of the alternative credit for the full degree. You might be able to use some for your general education, but it does require some finesse. So another pro here is that it does check the box for any degree. If you can deal with having a liberal arts degree and that's the only thing you need, you're good to go, right? A con would be that accumulating credit quickly, which you will accumulate it quickly if you're doing it this way, it really does make earning a degree an eventuality. You will get to the point, I see this with every family, you will get to the point where your student is just rocking through these classes. You're able to complete 2, 3, 4 classes in a month, sometimes faster, and you notice that they start amassing a lot of college credit. So now they've got 15 credits, now they've got 30, now they've got 45, and before you know it, you have to plan a degree. because you're only in, let's say, 11th grade. And so they've got all this time left. And so you want to work towards the degree. So just know that earning this credit this way does drive kind of the decision-making process a little bit. Whereas if your student is earning credit a little more traditionally, then you have more time to think about what their plans after high school are going to be. Another pro is that you can pay cash as you go. These are very affordable ways to earn college credit. Some of the credit by exams are as little as $100. CLEP right now, if you use a Modern States voucher, is free. Some of the providers that have a subscription are just a couple $100 or less per month. And so you're able to pay as you go. There's no student loans involved. There's no financial aid paperwork, but there's also no scholarships or things like that. The thing that you have to be aware of, this is so important, is that if your student finishes a bachelor's degree, then they are not going to have access to financial aid for a second bachelor's degree. So do not, please, please, please do not get a liberal arts degree for your student at age, let's say 15 or 16, with the idea that you're going to get to use this credit later for their quote unquote real degree that they want. It's not going to work that way. They're going to lose a lot of access to financial aid. There's not going to be any access to a Pell Grant. There's not going to be any access to subsidized federal financial aid. There'll be limited access to scholarships, and not all colleges will accept a student who already has a bachelor's degree. So there is a lot of limitations that are placed on your student if they finish a degree. Okay, so when you have all of this momentum behind you and you're thinking about getting your degree, you want to be real careful that this degree is going to check the box that you need it to. Now, you'll be able to use these credits and also your degree into a non-competitive graduate program, no problem. So maybe instead of a bachelor's degree, you want to think about having your student get a master's degree. That would be a next logical step. So your student gets a liberal arts degree, but the degree that they really want, they want to teach math at high school. Well, instead of having them go back to get a bachelor's degree to teach math, a better plan is to have them get the master's degree that integrates their teaching license. So climbing up the ladder instead of going laterally is going to be the better plan. Now, if you don't know what their plans are going to be, you don't know if they're going to go to graduate school, they could experience some rocky transitions. There's a few different challenges when you are using these kinds of credits, one of them being that there's very few graded credits, right? So not having those grades, not having those letter grades can be a factor when your student is applying to graduate school. Now, when you go to homeschoolingforcollegecredit.org, hs4cc.org, up at the top, you'll see our college credit directory. And these are the 30 ways to earn college credit. There's actually a couple more than 30 on there. This gets updated every single year, and it's broken down by credit type. So I just want to show you what the non-alternative and the alternative credits are so that you can be familiar. I already spoke to the non-alternative. These are going to be your college-based programs. Now, you can take college-based programs on campus or online. You can do it in accelerated semesters. You can do it over summer school. And there's a few other programs that are sort of alternative, but they end up being treated as actual college credits, meaning that they generate a paper trail because they appear in a college transcript. And so of the 30, the first 8 are going to be considered non-alternative because your student will get a grade and they will get a college transcript. All of the rest of them are going to be alternative. And so every other credit that is listed in that directory is alternative. All alternative credit is evaluated by one of 2 evaluators. The first evaluator is ACE, American Council on Education, and the second is NCCRS, National College Credit Recommendation Service. ACE is a little bit better accepted than NCCRS, and so you'll see a lot of options here for ACE. Be mindful that these businesses and companies pay to have their credits evaluated by ACE. And when they pay this money, ACE will evaluate their course and decide if it's worth college credit. Now, just because it's got ACE's evaluation doesn't mean that a college has to accept it. And you will find that ACE credits are not super well accepted. But again, you'll remember that these companies have gone above and beyond and they've formed partnerships with different colleges. So as long as your student is going to attend one of those partner colleges, you should be okay. The first few on the ACE list will often have their own evaluation. For instance, advanced placement exams. Advanced placement exams have been around long enough that colleges have their own advanced placement policy, separate and apart from the fact that originally these were evaluated for college credit by ACE. A lot of colleges could care less right now and would give your student college credit for an advanced placement exam, even if the College Board decided not to pursue ACE evaluation anymore. So those at the top there are pretty strong contenders. They're not going anywhere anytime soon, and you can usually get those accepted into most colleges. Now the rest of the ACE list, the ones that are from 13 down to 24, a little less so. Those you're going to want to look for your partner colleges. Now you hop over to the NCCRS list. We have a small list there. These are going to be accepted at a very limited number of partner colleges. And if you're using one of those partner colleges, you only need one, right? You only need one. But just be aware that the lower down the list, the less likely it is that you have options. Okay, so the farther you go down the list, the more certain you should be that it's going to be okay to use this credit. You want to check yourself extra careful. Now, there are a couple different providers that are not actually evaluated, but some colleges will give you college credit for them. And so they're a little bit tricky. You can read more about those on the Homeschooling for College Credit website if you are interested in some of those non-evaluated ways. So let's just go with a few pieces of takeaway advice before I leave you today. The first, when you're resourcefully planning, alternative credit can really save a lot of money, and it can save a lot of time. And you can get an accredited college degree this way. You can use it as part of a degree, and you can begin that in high school. Now, unless or until you know your post-high school plans, you really want to be careful with your alternative credit and not get carried away. In my opinion, I would say 10 classes is a good threshold. If you get anywhere near 10 classes, you need to be picking your target college. Otherwise, you have a possibility of not getting any of that credit to transfer. So you really want to make sure that you're not getting more college credit than you're comfortable losing. And I think probably 10 classes is about my comfort level. Maybe yours is a little higher, maybe yours is a little less. But if you're okay with these not counting later, then knock yourself out. But at some point, you will want to make sure that you're using a target college if you want to get more than 10 classes done. Now, for those of you who do need a college degree, for whatever your profession is, start with the end in mind, work backwards. Make sure that you're going to be able to use alternative credit before you start accumulating it. Those of you in licensed professions are going to have a harder time using alternative credit because you have to use certain colleges that may have certain types of accreditation attached to them. For instance, if you want to be a nurse, you have to make sure that you're in a program where when you graduate, not only can you take your registered nurse exam, but that you can also get licensed in your state. So you will automatically be working backwards in these programs. So your list is going to look different. You're not going to start with a credit and then find a college. You're going to find a college and then work backwards to see if you can get that alternative credit. So if you know that you need a college degree for your occupation, that's where you have to start. Now, for those of you guys who do not need a college degree, but you might want one, okay, and there's a lot of us in that category, alternative credit is usually a really good way to collect those credits for low cost towards that degree. And that is one of the ways that you can save a ton of money on a college degree. So if you want more help understanding how to use and how to earn college credit in high school, visit hs4cc.org. I'm Jennifer Cook DeRosa. Until next time, thank you.